Hello, my name is Marcelo and today I'm going to be discussing the poem The Tuft of Flowers by Robert Frost. So, the poem goes like this. I went to turn the grass once after one who moved in the dew before the sun. The dew was gone that made his blade so keen before I came to view the leveled scene. I looked for him behind the aisle of trees, I listened for his whetstone on the breeze, but he had gone his way, the grass all mown, and I must be as he had been, alone. As all must be, I said within my heart, whether they work together or apart. But as I said it, swift there passed me by, on noiseless wing, a wild dread butterfly, seeking with memories grown dim overnight, some resting flower of yesterday's delight. And once I marked his flight go round and round, as where some flower lay withering on the ground. And then he flew as far as I could see, and then a tremulous wing came to me. I thought of questions that I have no reply, and would have turned to toss the grass to dry, but he turned first and led my eye to look at a tall tuft of flowers beyond a brook. A leaping tongue of bloomings the scythe had spared, beside a reedy brook the scythe had bared. I left my place to know them by the name, finding them butterfly weed when I came. The mower in the dew, and loved them thus, by leaving them to flourish not for us, nor yet to draw one thought of ours to him, but from sheer morning gladness at the brim. The butterfly and I had lit upon, nevertheless, a message from the dawn, that made me hear the wakening birds around, and hear his long scythe whispering the ground, and feel a spirit kindred to my own, so that henceforth I work no more alone, but glad with him I worked with his aid, and weary sought at noon with him the shade, and dreaming as it were, held brotherly speech with one whose thought I had not hoped to reach. Men work together, I told from the heart, whether they work together or apart. So the big themes, the central themes of this poem are the idea of unity, because initially what happened in the poem was the man, he went to turn the grass after it had been mowed, and he realized that he was alone there. The man that mowed it before had already left, and so at first he's working alone when he suddenly sees a butterfly who is sort of like the symbol of change in this poem. And as he watches the butterfly fly around and over the dead flowers, he notices finally the butterfly reaches a patch of a tuft, basically a tuft of flowers that haven't been mowed. And as he sees this tuft of flowers, he feels to himself, he feels this connection with the man that had mowed the grass, because he feels that by looking at these still living flowers, he feels the hope the man had left, and therefore he feels like a connection between them. So that's the idea. And the most important idea, he says at the end, is men work together, I told him from the heart, whether they work together or apart. So basically the idea of the men working together, no matter whether they're together or apart. And so this poem is very, very long. It has 21 stanzas. There are 2 lines per stanza, however, and it follows an A, B, B rhyme scheme. So the first 2 lines rhyme, and then the next stanza of 2 lines rhyme. For example, I went to turn the grass once after one who mowed it in the dew before the sun. That's the A. And then the dew was gone that made his blade so keen before I came to view the leveled scene. That's the BB. This poem mostly follows a very iambic pentameter structure. However, the first 2 lines, it's interesting because they end with anapes. I went to turn the grass one after one who mowed it in the dew before the sun, like that. So I interpreted this anapes in the first 2 lines as sort of like the man, he's approaching the field and he's moving excitedly, and then suddenly the anapes stop, and it follows a very, very strict iambic because he realizes, oh, he's alone, so he doesn't have that excited thing to look forward to. So a few very interesting ideas used in this poem are also how he happens to reiterate the line, whether they work together or apart, twice. And I find this very interesting because initially, when he realizes he's alone working in the field, he says, all must be, I said within my heart, whether they work together or apart. So here he's feeling very desolate, and he's feeling separated from the man who had worked before him because he doesn't see him, and he says, oh, the work will be done no matter what, but it doesn't matter if the work is together or apart, the work must be done. But then later on, he reevaluates this statement, and when he sees the tuft of flowers and feels the connection to the other man, he says, "Men work together, I told from the heart, whether they work together or apart." So it's basically saying that now he realizes that in reality, even though they may have been separate, their intentions were the same, and that therefore, by thought, they're working together, and whether they work together or apart, their work was done as a whole together. And that's one of the most symbolic ideas of this poem. Another thing is the constant use of the word scythe. Scythes were used in the past to mow the lawn, and it can be seen as almost like that fear of cutting, causing splits between people, because in the sense the scythes were cutting the grass, and then what happened was that he came afterwards, so they weren't able to work together. So this scythe is the idea that there is a force trying to separate people, but in the end, the butterfly, and the tuft of flowers, more of the tuft of flowers, is a symbol that there is still hope. There's that one patch that wasn't been cut down by the scythe, and therefore it's what unifies people in the end. Some interesting words that were used were, for example, the use of over instead of saying over. This could be possibly because he's trying to stick to the iambic pentameter. Over would have caused it to be 2 syllables, but over, on the other hand, it's just 1 single syllable. Also, he happens to sometimes he hardly ever repeats the end of a sentence, but some interesting times he repeats alone and he repeats ground. He says, "But he had gone his way, the grass all mown, and I must be as he had been alone." And then later on he says, "And feel a spirit kindred to my own, so that henceforth I work no more alone." I think it's interesting that Frost is using this sort of parallel relationship. In the beginning, the alone is the feeling of, he realizes he's alone and he's feeling very sad in this sense, but later on when he says alone, he says, "I work no more alone," so he realizes, he's together with the other man, even though they are not, their physical bodies are not there. It's the thoughts of a unity of working together. And the use of ground works into the typical style of this Robert Frost poem. This Robert Frost poem is very it incorporates many elements of nature, which are important to him because he often uses flowers and butterfly and wildlife because they all act as his symbols that he uses in the poetry. And we can see from the title, "The Tuft of Flowers," how important this remaining tuft of flowers is in this poem, because it's the symbol of unification as between these two men who are not there physically in person, but their intentions are the same. Okay, thank you.